You have to build a database on the elite athletes to understand what there's different and what you're looking for, what to do with it. And when I thought, well, Jesus, horse racing is still eyeballs and intuition of 300 years. I can do better. I can take all this education I've had in. So I spent $40 million over about 5-6 years, and we turned it into $64 million.
Welcome back to Super Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm your host, Shahid Durrani. Today we have with us Jeff Cedar. Jeff took science and data analysis and used them to completely change one of the world's oldest sports, horse racing. Jeff started a company called EQB that uses advanced technology and performance data to find future champion horses, including the famous American Pharaoh. His background is pretty unique. He went to Harvard Law and Business School, worked on Wall Street, and even spent time as groom taking care of horses at racetracks. Jeff has worked with billionaires and some of the top horse stables in America, building a specialized company that the biggest names in racing trust. So welcome to our show, Jeff.
I started out as pre-med at Harvard, so I had a firm scientific kind of foundation.
You started EQB back in
before
1978. Yeah, before Moneyball. The reason this is so exciting is that you found something in an industry that you could utilize to amplify that industry, right? And that's really unique and clever and genius in its own way. Having the background that you have, all the great things that you've done before getting into this, how did that help you get into this specialized advanced technology in sports medicine
I was in my
for horses
at Harvard in the business school and law school program, which I did both at the same time before they had a joint program, to tell you how ADD I am. And I had to do a thesis combining business and law. And my thesis advisor was Archibald Cox. And some of the older people will remember was with the Nixon resignation and the Midnight Massacre and all that stuff in those days. So he was a famous guy. His office was in the stacks in Harvard, like a desk or something, with all these books all around, there. And that desk. And I had to go in and meet with him late in my senior year, and I hadn't even started the thesis, and I sort of knew I was in trouble. So he says, well, how's it going? And tell me about it. And I kind of looked at the floor, and I thought I'm in trouble. And he said, well, what are you interested in? He got the picture. And I looked at the floor again, and they said, horses. Yeah. I had gone on a blind date for rental, riding horses. And I had, instead of falling in love with the girl, I fell in love with the horse. And I became fascinated, and I spent time taking lessons and bought them.
No way.
And so I went and I said, I know horses. And he said, so he turned around and he took from me out. Instead, he turned around and he took this great big book off a shelf behind him and drops it on the desk, and the dust goes all out.
Yeah.
And he says, this is the statute that governs horse racing in Massachusetts. No one at Harvard has ever looked at it. Why don't you do that? So I did, and I went into archives on a racetrack, and I went to town on the thing I really got. And that was how I could spend time stay involved with the horses that I was loving. And it only took 20 years and several $1 million of private research. And I had to earn the money doing leverage buyouts and things so I could spend it all on the research. The first 20 years were a bust. But after that, it started to work. Once we had a core thing of data. I also, when I first got out, had the opportunity to work with the United States Sports Medicine Committee, the creation of the Sports Medicine Committee. That was back in 1976. When the East Germans burst on the scene, winning all these medals in the Olympics. And it scared the shit out of everybody, because supposedly they were doing it with mad scientists for kids out of kindergartens and shit. Turned out a lot of it was steroids. But anyway, we started out, I got to see what they were doing, and I got to work with Olympic teams and biomechanists and engineers and the MDs. And I learned that the elite athletes, that was different from normal, as normal is from like sick or injured. So your data, it doesn't work. You have to build a database on the elite athletes to understand what there's different and what you're looking for and what to do with it. And when I thought, well, Jesus, horse racing is still eyeballs and intuition of 300 years. I can do better. I can take all this education I've had in medicine and statistics and science and management. So That was my theory. But it turned out the data didn't exist for horses, and the equipment to get the data didn't exist for horses. I actually, along the way, invented the first portable ultrasound machine to go in and look at a horse's heart. Redid the protocol for looking at echocardiogram exams so we could measure stuff reproducibly on young horses with stalls. I should have patented it. Along the way, we invented a bone scanner and won new medical device of the year in Europe in 1986. For Johnson bought it from us to use on osteoporosis. We were trying to predict when horses would break their legs.
Whoa.
And we were building databases. And we had the first heart rate meter that was, or you could use in a racehorse that was actually accurate, and even in any weather. And we learned a lot. And then finally, I got a partner who had been a jockey and a successful trainer and was really a very bright person. She got into Bryn Mawr at like 15 and went out the back door with her father's credit card and hitchhiked to California. She'd been riding since she was 2 years old, bouncing in the back basket of her mother's horse out hunting. Anyway, when she brought in all the best of the traditional horsemanship and we overlaid technology on it, boom, it started to work. And then we got an opportunity with one of the biggest stables in the country. And he told us to make one recommendation. I was trying to explain to him that's not how it works. It's all program and it's this. He said, no, he had 700 horses. He says, make one recommendation. So I made this outrageous recommendation. He had a horse, a young colt. He had a new stallion he was trying to establish. And in its first crop, he had this one colt named after his grandson. And it was a main that hadn't won a race. And it was like a month before the Belmont Stakes. And so I said, which is one of the biggest races in the world, right? And it's a mile and a half. And I said, enter the Belmont Stakes. And he burst out laughing. I said, that's my recommendation. He said, why? He hasn't run a race. He hasn't even run. I said, yeah, he's not fast, but he never slows down. And from the Olympics in swimming, we had these logarithmic velocity decay curves that in repetitive actions, the muscles decay in their fatigue at a predictable rate for each individual. And if you can fit a logarithmic curve to it, and you can extrapolate that to see what their time would be at further distances. And that's how he knew it a mile, which almost nobody, none of the races are a mile and a half. So nobody's run them. And they don't even run a mile and a quarter like the Derby, except very rarely. On dirt. So I said, that's it. He's not going to slow down. So the trainer was a famous trainer. And the night before in the Daily Racing Forum, they said they had an article about who's this and who might that, who's good. Blah. And they said, then there's the jokers and the idiots. That was us. They never apologized. So anyway, so I get there and the trainers are telling the press he has nothing to do with it. It's a command performance, right? And I'm there. So we get him in the gate and he leaves. I knew he'd be dead last. He's trailing the field and I want to go under the table. I'm thinking, please, God, please. And about halfway through the race, he starts picking up horses. And then they get about 3/4 of the way and he's up to the pack and now he's rolling. And by the end, if there was another 2 strides, he'd have won the race. And he was third. So that meant now in his first crop, instead of having a nothing colt where it was completely worthless, he had a classic place, grade 1, world famous horse. And to prove it wasn't a fluke, about a month later in the Louisiana Super Derby for $1 million purse, he did the same thing. And he went up front. And at the end, he was flying. He would have won it if it was longer. So he hired me. And I ended up working on like 200 horses. And then some years later, I got the opportunity. A guy from Egypt loved horses. He wanted to get into horse races. And I picked up the phone and he just called us. And he said, can you help me? I said, you bet. And so he spent $40 million over about 5-6 years. And we turned it into $64 million. And in this third year, it was the leading stable in the United States, spending a fraction of what his competitors were spending. We usually spend below the average at these auctions. And we had the first Triple Crown winner in 37 years, American Pharaoh. So unfortunately, he had other business problems. And he was from Egypt, and that was when the spring came, whatever, that April spring, the Arab Spring. And that the Egyptian currency dropped by half, and he lost his, so he ended up going bankrupt, and we lost him as a client. It wasn't us. We made him a fortune. And so that's kind of how it built. But the first 20 years were having to keep the faith and keep building data and building technologies and seeing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the key word right there is faith, right? Without the faith, you would have given up.
Business, a lot of them are very wealthy and they all think they know everything. Everybody's an expert. Every trainer, even if they have an 8th grade education, knows everything about horse racing. There's nothing you can tell. Yeah, it's very tight. It's very traditional.
In that industry.
This jerk from this Harvard pinhead from Philadelphia. If you want to listen.
So, Jeff,
It's
resonate with what you're doing because my dad's late business partner, he had the Arabian horse training establishment in Belgium. So the Saudis used to get the horses from Saudi Arabia and then train them and send them back. So I visited there one time when I was younger. And since then, I've just been really excited about this industry and what people do with these like horses. People that love horses, they love horses.
That's why I did it. By the way, there's one of the things people say about horse racing is the horses break down and die and it's bad. We figured out mostly what's dangerous and we don't buy those horses and how to prevent it. Our horses don't get hurt. They don't break down. They don't have to retire at 3 like most of them. They're going and racing at 5 and 6 years old. With the technologies out there to stop all that if they don't even listen to it. But a lot of them it's impossible to penetrate. They're making so much money. The guys right around the wealthy people, they don't want anybody else in there doing anything. And anyway, we had the main thing that I did right was not trusting anybody to give me an answer on it without asking them, how do you know? That was the key to success. How do you know? Where's the data? And mostly it was either bad studies or it was veterinarians, big time guys in universities, vet schools. Their data was from ponies on treadmills. And I was gathering data at major racetracks on major horses. And it was different. It was different on the ones that stay safe, different on the ones. Go ahead.
Yeah. So you collected data on over 10,000 horses approximately, and you had all these people join you on this mission for years. How did you convince all these people to invest in something that will pay off after in such a distant future?
I had some day jobs, and I had to pay guys from professors from MIT and Harvard Medical School and University of Penn Vet School. And I had teams of people, and they loved me because I was.
Oh, you're paying them.
And their research. And we were building stuff and publishing it. We even published some of the stuff because nobody believed this shit. And who am I? How would I know? I'm not a veterinarian. I'm not an engineer. I got so pissed off. One of the first papers I published was they were telling me biomechanics that I didn't know. And they had all these textbooks about it. So I published a paper on the first one on 10,000 horses, 500 pictures per second, all digitized, all analyzed. And I showed at the gate of the racehorses, when they're rolling down the stretch and they're going full speed, they didn't even know existed. It wasn't what they said it was. They didn't know what the gate was, let alone be analyzing it for safety or efficiency or power.
Yeah.
So that was that. And that said, and I got it published in one of the major refereed veterinary journal in the United States in equine sports, equine medicine. And so that set a lot of people back. They said, I guess he's not such a wacko. And then I did it again. And that was our first paper. That's 10,000 horses over 5 years. But since then, it's like 50,000, 60,000. It's just a huge database. We're adding thousands a year. And no, I never got anybody to invest in it except myself until I got Ken Ramsey, who's a real gentleman and a terrific horseman and a handicapper, to let me do that for Nolan's Cat, his grandson's horse. And after that, Ahmed Zayat, who was a tough guy, but a very smart one. And he understood what we were doing and he helped us. And then we just took it to the moon. No, you know what? I don't. And there's a lot of.
Do you work outside of the country as well? Do you go other countries and help them with their horses?
Like giving somebody a violin and an instruction manual and expecting them to play a symphony.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cheap imitations abroad, but they say they're doing what we're doing, but they're not. We don't go abroad. You know why? Wait, I want to tell you why we don't go abroad. Oh, I don't go abroad.
No, I'm saying for you.
Because we've got dogs.
I'm speaking about you.
Especially my key partner, Patty Miller, she has this companion dog. What do they call it? Service dog. And if we went to England,
partner,
quarantine and blah blah blah. Australia, so it's a big deal. So he said, "Screw it, we don't do it. We don't."
Oh, it's a big thing.
They wanted They can send the one. So that, I don't know, that's probably stupid.
Yeah. You're happy where you are.
We love
That's
animals.
great.
We love the farm. We love horses and dogs. We live with them.
You know, the data that you collect through slow motion video and body scans and tracking how tired the horse gets and all that kind of stuff, can that be used for human beings in the athletic world? Is that already being done
Committee
in the Olympics and whatnot?
Velocity, but decay curve for swimmers, the repetitive motion stuff for the shot putters and things, the gait analysis. On our first couple of jobs were with the Olympic teams. We did it, for example, with the luge. Everybody thought they had to buy $1 million sled from the Swiss or from the East Germans or from the Swedes because they weren't doing well. And it really wasn't the sleds. And so we went up, we did our camera at Lake Placid at one of the big competitions. And the East German guy kept stepping in front of my camera to block me because he knew what I was doing. I had one of these. And it was a camera, not video. It didn't exist then. It was 500 frames a second. It was this really expensive, elaborate camera. I was a wrestler in high school and college. I actually qualified to go to the Olympic trials, but I wasn't that good that I would have won there. But I was a pretty good wrestler. I was in great shape, so I had to body block this guy. And I got the data. And it turned out that the Olympic team was getting like very strong guys, like football players, to push the sled. And that was not right. What was working was the Swedes and the Swiss had like ballet dancers. They were completely synchronized. The outside leg, the inside leg. The sled didn't wobble at all. And a teeny weeny wobble at the beginning became a lot of friction. So it was a big time difference at the bottom of the hill. So we got to benchmark that, stop getting guys that were pushing it with huge force, start getting guys that were pushing you totally synchronized. And they got into contention immediately. Yeah. That was one of our first big successes. And that was how I found out you benchmark what the champions are doing, benchmark who they are. And that's when I started to do with the horses. And we did it with the swimmers. We did it with ice skaters. And it taught me
that's great.
What kind of data I needed to collect. And then I had, of course, the equipment to collect it on horses didn't exist. Right. So I had to build it. And I did. I was relentless. And along the way, we got patents and shit.
That's good. You mentioned that the American Pharaoh has had a spleen that worked like a natural performance enhancer. How do you actually, how do you figure out what makes a horse special?
We would put them in pools, for example, and have them all wired up with all kinds of shit. And they'd be swimming in place in a pool when we gathered the data at the University of Pennsylvania Veterinary School. And we would put sensors on their hooves and film them and put force plates in the racetrack and just gather data. And you gradually see the difference in the data between the really good horses and the ordinary horses. The spleen thing came out of the developing that ultrasound. We scanned all the organs, and then when we had enough data, we just saw what relates to performance. And it turned out the thickness of the left ventricle septum wall in the heart, the diameter of the spleen, when you had enough data, they just bounced out of there. They were different on the elite horses. We didn't really know why. We could think about why. The East Germans were doing blood doping. They would take red blood cells and out, and plasmapheresis and do all this shit, and then put them back in before the competition so blood could hold more oxygen. And a horse, his spleen, dumps when he gets really excited, when he starts the race, and it can actually increase the red blood cells by like double it almost. It's huge. It's a huge effect. It's blood doping, but naturally. They developed it from evolution, having to run when the wolves kick, from a dead stop to run for a mile to get away. So it just pops out of everybody told me what was important, and I just said, I think I'll go get the data, because they were almost always wrong. I went to the leading experts in the heart rate. They told me the heart rate, we were going to do interval training, and they told me the heart rate, which was a big Olympics. They told me the heart rate for the racehorses would, because it was such a big organ, it was much heavier, blah, blah. It was going to be like 180 beats a minute. It was going to be, then it would go up and down the scale slower, up high to low. It turned out that was bullshit. Their heart rate coming down the stretch was 100 beats faster than that. It was like 220. And they could go from 25 beats a minute at rest to 120 beats a minute, standing in their stall without turning a hair when you walked in. So I said, holy shit, this heart, as big as it is, is more labile. It can shift gears faster. It can go much faster. And it's different. It's different than a human heart. I needed to study. I needed to find it. I had to invent the equipment, then get the data, change the protocol, change the frequency of the transducers, looking in there to get it so it was reproducible. And we discovered these things. And so I forget. You can tell I'm passionate. I forget what else I was going to tell you about. So that's how we got to the organs. We were scanning everything because we didn't know what would be important. And it came out of the data because nobody had done it before. Nobody did it.
Yeah.
And So, well, probably because of the cost. The cost of fortune.
Interesting.
I actually went for grants. I tried to get research grants.
You managed some.
They weren't going to give them to me because I wasn't at a university. And secondly, I needed more money than all the grants they gave together to everybody from these places. So I said, screw it. So I said, I'm going to have to earn that money. And I did. I can't believe I did, but I did. And I spent it.
Yeah. Good. No, that's awesome. I spent. That's good. How many horses do you have right now?
15 of my.
Oh, wow.
I do.
That's great.
Really good.
That's a lot of. You probably have a team to take care of them.
Smart people, hardworking. People is everything. Yeah. People in my barn.
That's awesome.
Really
people is everything. Yeah. People is everything. So you. That's great. So you help choose and manage several top winning horses, right?
Well,
including the Triple Crown winner in 37 years. Can you share some of your 2 or 3 main rules your team follows when you're looking at young horses to buy at auctions?
He bred her. And then we did all the testing to see who he'd keep and who he'd sell. And he was going to sell it. He actually put it on auction because he was starting to get in financial trouble. And there was an article about it the day before he won the Triple Crown. Front page center in the New York Times. Mm-hmm. And they always have a quote of the day for the newspaper. The quote that day was from us to him, which was, sell your house, don't sell this horse. So he bought it back for $300,000. And then the rest was history. It's worth $50 million. So what's our rule in buying a horse? First of all, don't get excited about one variable. If it has the best heart or the best gait or want the fastest workout in the sale or the best this and the best that, it doesn't mean squat. That's number one. That makes us different. It has to have a good everything. We're really looking for the whole, not for if it's got the greatest something, that doesn't matter. Secondly, you have to, the traditional stuff has to be there. All the traditional ways you look at it, that conformation, the way to put together the angles, the size of this muscle and a forearm and all that stuff is really important. Third, pedigree we ignore until the end, and that's only about price, whereas everybody else, that's the number one thing they'll look for them. In the Olympics, we didn't have the appearance at the tryouts. And the pedigree is the probability of what you're going to get. And we're going to look at what we got. And maybe it's like getting snake eyes, throwing snake eyes with dice 3 times. It's not very probable, but it happens. And that's what we're looking for. And that's why we would find all these horses at below average auction prices. So we're really different on that. The pedigree comes last, not first. We don't look at the catalog page and decide who to look at. And most of them, they just go through the catalog. They don't even look at the non-pedigree horses.
Good point.
And I got some of my very best horses that won on like $1 million, almost $1 million. Bought them for $37,000. Okay, and they're trying to resell them. Nobody would buy them. They're too cheap. They don't have pedigree. Blah. Then after they do all that, they can find where in the pedigree it was good.
Yeah. So what is the value? What is the total value right now of your stable? Like, how many horses do you have?
I'm doing it for clients.
Approximately.
The clients don't like it if you're competing with them. I only got the horses I got that were really good and worth a lot.
Oh, you do it for clients. Okay, not your own. That's perfect.
I got them in an auction. I couldn't leave them there. Nobody would buy them. So I did. And then they were great. One of them was in the World Championship races twice. He would have won last time, but the jockey almost fell off in the gate spot in the World Championship.
That's awesome.
20 lengths at the beginning of the race. Then he caught up and it was like a length from the winner, but he would have won it. And he cost $37,000. And they didn't like his pedigree.
What would be your number one tip for fellow people in business that you have learned over the years?
An innovator, they ask how people know when you're trying to find, because often you'll find that there's lousy studies or somebody's opinion, and you have to get the data. No, I get always check.
Don't go by based on their word. Check your own data.
That's how you. Then you won't find what you expect, but you'll find what it is.
Love it, man. You'll find it. Yeah. No, it was great chatting with you today. It was great to have you on the show, sharing your past, your history, and what you're doing right now. It's incredible what a human being can accomplish when you make a committed decision as you did. And I'm always excited to speak to people like you. So thank you for coming on the show.
My story. A lot of people still don't know who we are or what we did. So I'd like to get it out.
My pleasure. Yeah. But now you are. This is the best way. Podcast touring is the best way right now if you want to get your message out. So keep doing it.